All right, it's 7 PM, so we can call the meeting to order and do roll call when you're ready.
Barkle,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Kettering,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Weiss,
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Okay, so everybody had a chance to go over the minutes from the previous meeting. Unless there's anything to add or change, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Right, have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Are there any items to be added to the agenda?
No.
Okay, if nothing to add, then I need a motion to approve the current agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the current agenda.
Second.
Right. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then we can go through conflict of interest declarations and start on the end with Kathy.
No.
Dennis Michael, no.
Chris Sparkle, no.
Don Kettering, no.
Sherry Hoffman, no.
Matt Evans, no.
Lauren Nelson, no.
All right. Our first agenda item is scheduled for 7:05, so we will have to wait for that. So we have a few minutes to kill here. And I guess for everybody that's here tonight, if you plan on speaking during public comment, you can go ahead and sign up at the back there so we can kind of keep this a little bit orderly towards the end here.
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification.
Yeah.
Signing up for the general public comment, or are we signing up to comment on something on the agenda?
So this would be for the general public comment at the end there. And yeah, I will take a brief public comment for each agenda item.
For an agenda item, since we have a couple minutes yet, for an agenda item for the next meeting, I would like for us all to review the topic of variances and come to discuss variances.
Do you have anything in particular, Don?
No, no. Just the concept.
All right, since we're at 7:05, we'll start with the first agenda item, the East River Electric rezone. Applicant is requesting to rezone 2 parcels from rural transitional and low-density residential to moderate-density residential per Article 18, Section 1809, and Article 20, Section 2003. Said property is legally described as lots 1 and 2 of Lewis and Clark Substation Addition in the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 15, and in the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 22, Township 93 North, Range 56 west of the 5th PM, Yankton County, South Dakota, containing 3 acres more or less in Utica South Township. Is there anybody here from East River Electric to present this?
Good evening. My name is Steve Arbach. I'm the Special Projects Manager for East River Electric Cooperative. I'm a registered PE in the state of South Dakota. I have 42 years experience in the utility industry, both with Northwestern Energy and now as the manager at East River Electric. I'd like to tell you a little bit about East River Electric. A lot of it is included in the informational brochure that we sent out. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the project need and then answer questions. East River Electric Power Cooperative is a wholesale power supplier that serves 24 rural electric distribution cooperatives and 1 municipal electric system in eastern South Dakota and portions of western Minnesota. Our headquarters are in Madison, South Dakota. For 70 years, East River Electric has been serving its member cooperatives with reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity. Our member systems distribute that energy to their member owners to power their homes, farms, businesses, and their lives. Bond Home Electric Association, I'll call it BY, is the member cooperative that provides electric distribution system to the electric customers in the Yankton County area, and specifically to the area near the Gavin's Point Dam along the Missouri River, a high load growth area. East River is a not-for-profit cost-based utility, which means that the margins we make over and above costs to provide power go back to the communities we serve. East River is owned by our member systems, and our board of directors is comprised of representatives from our member co-ops. These members set East River's strategic direction. And now regarding the project, the original East River transmission line and Gavin's Point substation were installed in 1970. It is served by a 2.5 mile long radial transmission line with access issues. So in other words, if we have an issue with the line, all the time that it takes to identify the issue and correct the issue, that substation would be out of power. The existing system is reaching its load serving capabilities. To address the load growth and reliability needs of our members, East River evaluated several options based on cost, reliability, impacts, and feasibility. Expanding the existing Gavin's Point substations is not an option due to the adjacent property development. As a result, East River has proposed a new Lewis and Clark substation. The new substation will be located near the high load growth area and allows BY to tie into existing circuits and install more distribution circuits as needed to efficiently serve the area's load growth and increasing reliability needs. You'll notice that site layout includes tree and shrub screening on the north and east sides of the substation area and has a second lot that we were able to negotiate the purchase of based on the property owner's preference. We have no plans for that second lot, and it'll actually serve as a screening area for the substation. East River is seeking the rezoning of this property to accommodate the platting of the smaller lot and to allow for the utilization of the substation on the property. And in summary, this substation would provide a redundant power source, provide capacity for future load growth, and provide stronger ties for load transfers during system outages. I would entertain any questions that we have.
So I guess at this point, we're just gonna stick with addressing the board for right now. I guess going through some of this, it looks like there's an existing shelter belt on the south side that's going to remain.
The plan is for that to remain. You'll see the trees that are to the east of what we're purchasing. The existing owner would like us to remove those trees in that area. Excuse me?
So on
So
this,
the trees to the south of what we have platted where we show the substation will remain.
so basically east of your bold line that's going on the east side of the property, the existing trees that stick out, those ones are the ones that are gonna get removed.
Yeah, the trees to the east of the bold line, the property owner that we've negotiated the purchase from would like us to remove those trees.
So these trees are going to remain. The current owner of the property wants these trees removed. These trees that you see here are existing. They will leave those. The people that own the property now that are selling this to them want them to remove this group of trees here.
And
I'll pull this up on Beacon so everybody can see with the current. Sorry, John, I'm gonna use your.
You want the parcel ID?
Yeah, you get the parcel.
Yeah, it's 09.015.300.200.
So this is the property they purchased. The little over an acre here, and a little over an acre here. This is currently zoned rural transitional, and this is low density residential.
Could you put the zoning districts up on there?
And these are the trees that would be on the south end of that drawing.
Bill, could you come back up?
Sure.
I guess one question I had on it was, why was it going to be rezoned to R2 instead of R3 when it butts up against R3?
Because that's a half acre minimum. And they want to divide it into 1 acre lots or a little over 1 acre lots. And there's moderate density across the road.
Just for the lot size?
Yeah,
Because I mean, half acre minimum doesn't mean that it can't be an acre.
but it. True, but we thought with all of this being moderate density, it would just fit in better with. You know, what's there now.
So the actual construction or the actual utility thing is gonna be right where your pointer is now, not in the yellow area, is that
And
correct?
this will be an open lot.
yeah, with no, we have no plans for that lot.
Stage 2. It's listed as stage 2. Phase 2.
So is there,
Till we get Arthur and then we'll let you talk.
and I guess just so everybody's aware, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, and rural transitional, R1, R2, R3, the utility facility is all permitted use. Right now, we're only talking about rezone.
It's an R3, that's another point that we- Is it an R3?
Yeah,
I
it's on
believe-
R3.
And it's permitted use where it is now, but.
It's to get the lot
they don't
sizes
wanna buy 20
conforming.
acres, it's just not, it's cost prohibitive from what they want for it. That's the same thing here.
But I mean, just to be clear, they could buy an acre in the, or 5 acres in the yellow section there and build it with just a building permit.
Correct. It's permitted use.
We're just talking about rezoning a chunk on there to make it fit the lot size.
And once again, we actually would have preferred to buy a smaller piece of property, but the present owner really negotiated for us to buy 3 acres. And we have absolutely no plans for that, what's marked as lot 2. It'll serve as a buffer.
So you're looking to sell those acres back there then?
Hey, hang on, we're just addressing the board right now, and I will ask for public comment, and you'll have a chance. So,
Now, for those of us that don't know the legal description of stuff, where exactly it's going in, but this one,
Well, it doesn't have an address yet because there's nothing there. This is Deer Boulevard and this is Christie Lane.
so,
so that's right off of Nome Street there.
There is no street.
okay, so again, we're just keep this when you're addressed and when you have a chance to speak, kind of keep order here, okay? To clarify, yeah, it is off of just Deer Boulevard. There is no cross street where they're building. The closest cross street is Christie Lane.
This street is already planned out. This is the development across the road. And so these lanes, the roads are already there. And this road will eventually be put in here. And I believe that this development will extend here and here also.
And to clarify some more, that's what, about a 1/4 mile south of Highway 52 or 1/2 mile south of Highway 52?
7.5 mile.
Yeah.
This is the mobile home
Yeah.
park here. This section line goes over even with the south road on Timberland Park.
Those are the fish ponds.
Over
Uh-huh.
here.
Yeah.
Correct, that's state ground.
Bill, do we have a drawing of the structures that are going to be put on there so we can see what kind of facilities are going to be there?
Right there.
What is that?
Yeah,
Is there a substation in the area that would be similar?
well, the closest substation, and it's not exactly similar to this, would be roughly 3 miles west on, just on the north side of Highway 52. That's the Gavin's Point substation that I referred to.
Would the lines coming in be above ground or below ground?
The lines coming in would be above ground, and I believe BY would plan on keeping their lines all below ground, the ones that would exit the substation.
What kind of trees are you planting?
Typically, we can plant a combination of some lower growing trees and shrubs so that we get a screen for basically for, so you can't see through the trees. It's something that we can certainly take suggestions and comments and plan accordingly.
Can you replace the ones that die?
Yeah, we have maintenance crews that keep an eye on the shrubbery, and yes, we have some that die, but we try to maintain the best we can, replace as we need.
What's the path? You said that there was lines that come in from above ground. What's the path that they'll be coming in from above ground?
So we're still early in the the route selection process. But The source that we're seeking is Northwestern Energy's Yankton transmission sub. So we're looking at 436th Avenue to 52, and then down Deer Boulevard.
What kind of poles or? towers?
A typical transmission structure will, sometimes we'll use wood, sometimes it's a metal structure, depending on the economics at the time. And then the reliability that we've kind of function into the cost analysis. But the typical pole would have a conductor on the top, three post insulators that extend out from the pole, basically vertical from each other. So it'd be a monopole with basically 4 conductors and 3 insulators that you'd see.
From 436 down to 52, where?
So like I said, we're still pretty early in that route selection process. We basically have to go through survey and then look at what are the lowest or the least cost or least impact to people along the route. We try to select a feasible route that we impact as few customers as we can. So that 436, like I said, it's basically coming from the area of Northwestern Energy's Yankton transmission sub. And then we'd have to get over the bluff and follow Highway 52 back to the east.
Is a mile west of Deer Boulevard.
436 is Smoke Road, right?
Yeah, a mile west of Deer
That's
Boulevard.
unfinished down. Is
Right.
there even right away there? Do you know? Probably not. Because I would go straight through, well, what's that development right next to the go-karts, to the east of the go-karts? I'm pretty sure. Quarry Pine, yeah.
I'm assuming this is all gated and locked and fenced and downcast lighting and all that around the substation itself.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Fencing,
The fencing of the substation, yeah, the typical substation fence by code, we have to have basically 7 foot, typically with barbed wire around the top.
and their gates
And
are
then
locked,
we would have gates,
downcast lighting,
excuse me.
downcast lighting, so it's not, you know, a bright beacon of light down there at night.
No, there wouldn't be typically any lights on the substation. I know there's different philosophies on whether you light a substation or not, but typically we don't. And as far as noise, there really isn't any noise from the substation. Very faint hum from a transformer if you're in the near vicinity. And as far as normal activity around the substation, when it's in the construction phase, there'd be a significant amount of activity. But on a normal ongoing basis, it would be just inspections that typically happen once a month.
So I guess you have studied, and this is where you've determined as the most beneficial spot to put it, or is it based on mostly growth or existing housing?
Couple factors, yes, it is close to the high load growth area. And it's actually ties in very well with BY's existing circuits. and gives them the flexibility to add more as they need in the future. This is a site that we did look at and explore with BY. It was based on input that we received from them, and it was actually after a request from BY to help with low growth issues that they foresee in the future.
Where did you say that this was going to be fed from? As you said, it was at Northwestern Distribution Center? Is that? Or where are you getting, the power that's coming down to this is coming from which substation?
So right now, Northwestern Energy has an existing substation basically to the north of 436th Avenue, just a little bit back to the west. It's a substation that's sourced by Gavin's Point Dam, another source from Fort Randall, and a third source that actually comes in from the north from Utica Junction, ultimately to Napa Junction, and then into Yankton Transmission Substation. We've made a request to SPP to facilitate an additional circuit from that substation. Northwestern is working with us to accommodate that request.
So just off of 314.
Yeah, just by Jim Ploppick's place, right east of there.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's over the hill and that way.
So yeah, here's 314,
Yep.
here's 50, it's right in that whole thing.
But basically you'd be coming off of that substation on 436 and then over the hill and.
That's what we're proposing, yes.
Is there a reason that you wouldn't site it like on 436 south of Highway 52 instead? Or is it based on the load distribution?
We would prefer to utilize the location that it's at. It's closer to the high load growth areas. And like I said, it does tie in well with BY's existing circuits.
You'll have a chance in a second. Okay.
He's part of it.
Oh, you're part of.
Yeah.
Okay, come on up and so everybody can hear you.
Question you just posed as far as on the south side of the Highway 52 and 436, that's technically core ground, and we have a substation that's 1/8 mile from that. So the reason it wouldn't be good to put it there is because we already have a substation there. We need to put one further over to where the area is that needs the low growth, or will be based off the low growth. So,
I don't know anything about substations, but is there a reason why there can't be underground cable
On
other than cost?
the main driver is cost, and there are actually some reliability issues with underground as well, dig-ins, other issues like that. But we do, like Ed mentioned, continue to try and keep our rates low. And it is very, very expensive to put that voltage of a line in underground, very expensive. This would be a 115 kV source, so 115,000 volt a line that would be sourcing this substation. Same general basic design that we use for our 69. Nothing, our 69 kV lines, nothing really different from the way we build or design 69 kV lines to our 115 kV lines. We utilize the same design.
All right, is there any more questions from the board? All right, so that, I think most people here want to ask you specific questions. Instead of having it back and forth out to the audience, I'd ask if you'd like to stay up here, and then if we'd take one at a time and keep your question brief and succinct. And I'll start with whoever wants to go first. You come on up, state your name for the record, and then if you have a question or comment on this, take that.
My name is Wade Lippert. I'm a resident on Christie Lane and also the HOA president of Lewis Clark West Homeowners Association. Representing some of our folks that are not able to attend. They had some questions concerning this. One of them. to start with was-
Would you step close to the microphone?
Sorry,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I need to repeat anything?
No.
Okay.
It's
For the record?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the first things and probably the most important, other than we've talked about the cosmetic effects and you know, how this is going to affect property values, that was one of the questions. And the other, one of the most important questions was individual health, as this emits, and you as an engineer can probably answer this question better than anyone. What's the distance requirement away from a residence before we have to be concerned about someone's health with the electromagnetic emissions that come off of that? I'm sure that's going to affect health. And another thing, our electronic devices in our homes, how is that going to affect, you know, we have a lot of, you know, Bluetooth capabilities or you know, things that don't connect through wire anymore. So anything that's emitted through the air could possibly affect it. So that was one of the first questions that has been proposed to me. And I think that was probably a good concern.
Okay, do you have a chance to address it, some of those?
Sure. I know that generally there are concerns about EMF, electromagnetic force. As you get away from a substation, those that field deteriorates very quickly. So typically, once you're even past our property, if a person measured the fields that you would experience from that substation, typically you're exposed to more of higher levels right in your residence from a lot of the equipment that you have right in your residence, such as microwaves. If you have might have your computer screen. So it really, in our opinion, is not a concern.
So do you generally size your lot with the fencing to basically make the safe zone, or is there any kind of measurement that is kind of a rule of thumb or anything?
I don't believe there are any measurements that are rule of thumb, but you can, if you do take measurements as you get away from the equipment, you can really see the fields rapidly deteriorate. We do size our substations to allow proper or adequate room for our equipment when we have any kind of maintenance activities that we have to do. We do make sure that our fences are in place so that we can meet any code requirements that we have for keeping the public far enough away from our equipment in the substation.
Okay. Did you have one more question for him? Okay.
We talked about property values and that, but one other question that was a big concern, because it is so close to our development, that the buffer zone, what assurances do we have that absolutely nothing could be built in there if this zoning variance or adjustment takes place? So there's a lot of concern with property values, and you know, this is an association, so we do have certain regulations on what can be built in the association properties, although this may not be included in that. So there's some concern about what can be built, and or is this buffer zone going to always be a vacant lot, which I think we prefer, given the understanding that the trees right to the north of Stacy will be remaining there, that you'd mentioned. So I guess the question I'm trying to bring up is that safe zone or that buffer zone going to remain? And what assurances we have that nothing will be built in there? That'd be the question.
We absolutely foresee no need to build a substation or any additional equipment from our sub on that property. We have no plans, and I absolutely foresee no reason why East River Electric would ever build anything on that property. Now, I can't guarantee that at some point we wouldn't entertain selling it to somebody, but I don't believe that's in the plans at all either.
How will you be maintaining that?
Well, right now, we would allow it to continue to be farmed the way it is right now.
You have any more questions?
Not at the moment. I know there are some other members here
Okay.
that might have questions that I haven't entertained, so.
All right, I'll give the next person a chance.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anybody else? Okay, come on up, state your name.
My name is Greg Henderson. I live at 3708 Christie Lane. So the southern boundary of the two lots is my backyard. And I believe this project is going to have a detrimental impact on not only our subdivision, but the whole area out there. It may be a convenient site for BY and East River, but it's going to be a problem for the rest of us that live there. So I would hope in a perfect world that they could find an alternative site. If they can't, they're inserting something into this area that wasn't there. We've lived there 24 years. We've seen a lot of changes out there. I'm pretty much a live and let live person, but this is going to change the neighborhood. And your zoning ordinance, one of the things it's supposed to do is protect existing property uses. And I'm asking you to consider that in your deliberations. I'm also asking you to consider the fact that you can adjust your decision on this. In other words, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You could rezone the north lot and leave the south lot as it is. You don't have to do both. You have that latitude. So if you're going to approve this or recommend approval to the commissioners, I would strongly encourage you to try to minimize all the impacts that this is going to have. The buffering that's talked about on the north lot, it's going to be nice for the people working in Heine's Field to be screened off. It doesn't do anything for the people across the road or the people to the south. Those screens are on the east and on the north. The people are on the west. So again, if there's a way that they can screen this to help the residents that live there, that's what should be their first priority. So again, this is a big deal for us. And you have the power to recommend, if this is going to happen, that it be done in a way that minimizes the impacts. It was stated earlier that the reason they can't expand the existing substation out there is that there's growth that came up around it. This is being inserted into an area that's having growth. And hopefully there's better locations in this. So again, please consider that. We're there year round. And we've been there for a long time. Heine's have been good neighbors to us. They watch when they spray their fields to make sure they don't spray our trees and whatever. I can't believe that they're going to want to remove even some of the trees in that North Grove. That's a good screen. It would take 30 or 40 years to build up that screen. So if that's possible for you to require that tree grove be left alone in total and not have the east end lopped off, that would be a preference. So, and one final comment, that property that's on the south lot, if you go out there and look at it, it's built on an old swale or whatever in the river. There's a low area there. If that vegetation is removed for development and for a parking lot, let's say if East River wants to park some trucks there, that water, if we ever do get rain again, is going to come right down into our subdivision. So if there's going to be no development on that south lot, we would prefer to have that in writing and have it stipulated for the record in any recommendations that you make to the county commission. Because as good intentioned as they may be, that's just somebody's opinion or somebody's idea at this point. It's not anything that's going to be binding on anybody. So please, look out for your residents. And if this has to happen, because I know there's probably a need for it, minimize the impacts. Do what you can to do that. Thank you.
I'd like to correct one thing, that you can't do an all or nothing. The lower lot is low density residential. It's platted, the new plat has 1.3 acres. It'd be a non-conforming lot and they wouldn't approve that.
No, but you can have conditions. You don't have to do it all or nothing. I still don't believe that that's the case.
It has to, or it's not conforming. The ordinance says it's, the moderate density is minimum 1 acre. That's low density now, so it has to be rezoned.
Can't that be just left out of it?
You know, they're required to buy it by themselves.
Ownership is one issue. Land use is another.
If they buy it, they have to plat it off. So that's how it works. That's to plat it off. It has to be rezoned. Well, it's not conforming otherwise.
I still think that if there's a way to carve that out, or have some conditions on it, that would reassure the area, that would be appreciated.
One of the things that we could consider, and that actually was in an earlier version of this print or this site layout, is some additional screening that we could install all along the east and the south property lines as well.
I understand the concern, but I'd like to remind everybody, it's a permitted use. They could go buy 4 more acres, which is cost prohibitive, and do it without a meeting. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Right, so I guess just to clarify on some of the issues brought up. We are talking about the screening and the site layout and everything here that's more of informational purposes. What this meeting is about is the rezoning of the lot to meet the lot size. And like Bill just said, they could buy the minimum lot size required for the current zoning district and just come in for a building permit without this hearing. So what this hearing is mainly about is the rezone of the lot. It crosses 2 zoning districts. So both lots in those zoning districts need to be rezoned to the same thing to be in conformance. We can't rezone something and make it non-conforming with our zoning ordinance. It's not allowed. So the only way around this would be if the seller would agree not to basically sell you that southmost lot. But if that's a requirement of the sale, then as the county, we can't force the seller to sell or not sell a piece of property.
Chairman, could you identify and tell me exactly what a moderate density residential MD is versus what that's what they're going for, is that correct?
Yeah, so moderate density is a minimum lot size of 1 acre. Low density is 5 acres and high density is ½ acre. And then the blue on the map that you're seeing now is rural transitional district, which is a minimum of 20 acres. A utility facility such as this is a permitted use in any one of those districts. It doesn't matter which one. So that means that they could come in for a building permit as long as they met the minimum lot sizes, and they could just build it with a building permit with no meeting. What we're talking about is that he's crossing 2 zoning districts, one that requires 20 acres, one that requires 5 acres. And he's looking to rezone to a different zoning district that requires a 1 acre minimum lot. So that is what we're addressing right now, is basically what zoning district it is and what the lot size requirement is going to be. If they wanted to keep it all in the rural transitional district, which would be north of the current tree grove there, they could buy 20 acres and they could build the site with just a building permit and no meeting. Or they could buy 5 acres in the yellow highlighted area there, south of the trees. And they could build the site with just a building permit and no meeting. What they're requesting to do is the seller has agreed to sell them 3 acres, some of which lies in the blue and some of which lies in the yellow on the map, and rezone it to moderate density, which would be the same as what's highlighted in pink across the road. And that would make it conforming at 3 acres. They wouldn't have to buy more property. And I guess a requirement of our zoning ordinances during a rezone, that's what this public hearing is for.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Is there anybody else wants to come up and have a question? Yep, come on up.
My name's Tim Kellen and I live actually next to Gary. So I'm at 3710 Christie. So I'm around the corner of Deer Boulevard, directly behind this. So I guess there's kind of comments that just kind of came up here that disturbed me a bit, just in that they can buy 4 more acres, they can buy 20 acres, and they don't need this meeting, don't need to rezone, which totally get the laws of zoning and whatnot. But let's be honest, in this location, based on the drawing and everything, it's benefiting the farmer, and it's benefiting clearly electricity, which we all depend on, which if there's that need, we have to have that need. But for us to have to look at it in a perspective of it's got to be in this location, I don't know. I mean, does it make it the most sense? Maybe it does. And I'm not opposed to having something like that a safe distance away from me. The whole lot thing being non-used or being used or maybe for sale, maybe not for sale. It just feels like it's not that well thought out, other than realistically, those are the 3.5 acres that the current irrigation system doesn't really catch all of, right? So it makes more sense for the Heinies for sure. And even the fact that the way it's kind of designed here with a tree line towards the field where there's nobody living and no tree line or anything towards Deer Boulevard, which for me, that, you know, even having them wanting to take out the far east section of the tree line that's already there, it's kind of a concern of who's really getting serviced here, because it's definitely not the homeowners. You know, we recently just moved here, so I just bought, I'm the last guy in. I mean, how long has this been in the makings? Is this something that I should have been able to easily found? Or was I kind of responsible for calling the Heinies and going, hey, you're gonna sell that land? You know, what's gonna happen back there? Yeah, how long has this been in the plans to be in this location? Is that?
We have been notified when we bought our property that something like this was going back there.
Because it certainly would have probably impacted our decision, right? And again, I'm not saying that it's the worst thing. Better than the mobile homes that are all going up all over the place there. But clearly, I think to Gary's point, it's an established neighborhood that all of a sudden this makes a big change to it. So that's really it.
I guess again, to address a little bit of that is a utility facility is a permitted use in any of these zoning districts. So it could be built in any zoning district based on our zoning ordinance. Basically, all they would have to do is meet the lot size and setbacks. So as far as any kind of personal dealings, as far as why certain pieces of land or trees or whatever are being removed, I guess the county doesn't really have any power over that. What we're concerned with is what's presented to us at this meeting. Yep, come on.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were
Yep.
on a roll. You
No,
were really
it's all right.
going there for a good roll. You know that you're the planning board. My name is Nick Whitert. I live just across the street on Christie Lane. So I came here because I had talked to a number of people and I had talked to a number of other outside people that said, you guys are the planning and zoning, right? You guys do planning. I don't see planning very well down in our neighborhood. You lack a lot of planning. I don't know if you don't have time or your group. I love the suggestion that let's talk about variance. We've been given variances out like candy bars in this county. Let's do some talk about how many variances you guys have given. I understand that you need to, you can only do what you can do, but you can do some planning. We have a problem down in our area and you guys are well aware of it. How many people have went down to our area? Raise your hand, have you been in our area? It's an extreme explosion of out of control. And it's frustrating me to see that when you guys have control of that and you give out variances. It's not good. You have laws with the zoning, with the book that the Bible that you guys go by. And I appreciate that. And I think it's important, but you have to plan. We have one road going down there. Now you're going to bring all this power in there and you're going to say, oh, we're only going to be there a few days a week. Come on, we got to understand that this is an electrical thing that goes down. There's going to be more traffic. I think the emergency, Paul Scherschlag, the emergency manager, he said, this is a disaster down there, you guys. And now we're talking about more. You have to take control of this thing back over there. There's no sewage. There's no septic. These guys are going to open up a big section. Okay. It's going to be all gravel. Not one of you guys asked a question about runoff. Not one. Your questions are so lame. I apologize for saying that, but you're uneducated because you don't live there and you don't maybe care. I don't know. One of the people I talked to said, you better go to that meeting because the only thing that these guys hear is when people start screaming. We got a lot of people here that could say a lot more than what we should, or maybe I have, and I apologize. But there is some health effects. We know that. I have from the windmills that I have a family member that has a windmill that is the required length away. No cell phone service, zero. I can't imagine that we know all what big substations do. When I see a substation, I see one up by Utica. Where are the homes? No, there was no homes there. It's a great place. I applaud you guys for planning that one. Good deal. But not in a residential, for crying out loud, you guys. That's not right. The drainage, I'm concerned about drainage. You get all that, is there going to be cement there? Or is there whatever? Does anybody realize that's Deer Boulevard is a dead street right at the end of our Stacy Lane? What does that mean? There's no way for the water to go. The lack of planning, the water comes down underneath Christie, goes under Stacy. That's it. It stops. There's no way out. What happened in October or March
2019?
2019. What happened out there, guys? Does anybody remember? Because I was helping people bail out their basements because the water doesn't flow. Take care of these things. They're going to have additional runoff. Maybe not a lot, but a lot more than what a farmland does because it seeps away. There's already a spot north of there that doesn't drain from the irrigation, and that runs into the ditch. Nobody sees that because we don't go out there. You guys don't live out there. There's garbage blowing all over from other things that need to be contained. There's just getting a lack of planning. And I beg you guys to please do some planning down there. It really troubles me when there's no questions to be asked. You know, why do we need all this power down there? Is it because we have all of these small, uninsulated living spaces that they run and the AC is on high for all weekend and we got power outages? Maybe we should have addressed not so many air conditioners running at one time. I can't imagine the power load that you guys are having now. It's got to be ridiculous. And it's because we have so many campers down there. Good or bad, it doesn't look good for me. I just talked to a guy. I said, what kind of sewage system do you have? He said, well, all of the campers, there's over 200 of those campers, all go into one system and it settles out. And then I force it. Pump goes on and I force it out into a drain field right next to a lake, a drainage lake that all the campers are supposed to fish in and wade in. Doesn't seem to me very good planning. And I understand that this is about a zoning these things, but when you are zoning things and just keep piling things on top of things and giving variances and all these things, we have to have you guys planning for us. It is so critical. The city, I talked to some of the city planners and they go, ooh.
So I'd like to.
I want to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
Bill, how many variances have been granted in the last 2 years?
Well, variances were that easy. That's what we would have applied for, but we know that the current commission rarely gives a variance out. I think there's been one in the 2 years I've been here. Otherwise, we would have applied for a variance, but we knew it wouldn't be granted, so we went for the rezone.
Well, I appreciate that because there's been, when I was in some other businesses, they were quite frequent and a lot of them were because someone wanted to put a house out on an acreage in it and it needed to be a 20-acre deal. And, oh, we'll give you, you're a farmer, you want to expand and this, that, and the other. And at any rate, my concerns is the flooding problem, additional water coming into the ditch. There's only one place it can go, and that's on us. I don't believe that if these gentlemen had planned their operations, that they would have had to use this property. They already got locked out once. Now they're asking for a stage 1 and a stage 2. Oh, by the way, we're not going to do anything to stage 2. We won't.
Okay. All right, Nick.
I have a couple other things here.
And if you could, make it a little bit more succinct here, so we can give somebody else a chance.
Fire routes. Has anything been planned for fire routes? We got 15,000 amps going through. I mean, the potential of fire hazards is got to be looked at. I know Paul has talked about that and it's very concerning down in area. One way in, no way out probably. So there's things, that road can't handle much more traffic. That road is breaking up. There's road concerns and we have to address that. There's going to be additional traffic, especially building heavy loads breaking up there. We can't even get salt in the winter, but that's neither here nor there. But those are the main things, floodplains, fire routes, excessive wear on our road that's already marginal at best. We took money out of you guys' pocket, out of the county's pocket, and we developed our own road district. So you guys lost all of our revenue, unfortunately, but it was good for us. We got a good road. So we took control of that and did some planning. So thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Anybody else want to speak? Come on up.
Surprise, I live on Christie Lane. My name is Chelsea Haas. The way that I'm understanding this is that you keep saying that if you deny the zoning change, they can go and buy 4 more acres and do it no problem. And I kind of have a problem with that. I understand that during, like, with the current zoning laws, that that's allowable. I feel like if you're gonna question variances in the next meeting, maybe that should be questioned as well. Thinking that something like that with health risks, with all of these concerns that we have, could be built next to our house, no problem whatsoever. It's the fact that they're being considerate by trying to get that north lot. And I understand that you guys are trying to be considerate in that, knowing that you could just buy 4 more acres. So that's my comment, is if you're gonna question variances, I would maybe question that as well.
Thank you.
Could you come up here? Could you bring it down to where like LaCroix construction is? So I can bring it down so I can see LaCroix construction. Straight north, straight north. Can you blow it up a little bit? Okay, so you see how the pivots swing right there? I'm wondering if Heine's would sell that ground the same price as they would that ground that's right next to houses. I think this would be a solution that I see. I mean, that, I don't think you would even have a single person at this meeting if it was there. Because you got a commercial area next to kind of a commercial use. I mean, I think you're gonna get a lot of complaints putting it where you got it. That's my opinion. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but that's what I.
Oh, that's
thought that was
fine.
a good spot.
Okay.
I don't know if that works. You can tell me.
Do you want to address that about the sighting?
Well, that's pretty a cheap spot, I'm sure.
My name's Ken Sard. I'm the operations manager at BY Electric. And if you don't mind, Bill, I'm gonna bring your mouse just a little bit here. We'll go back to the area. If I didn't say that loud enough, it's Ken Sarda, bottom operations manager there. For those of you that don't know, because you can't see it, there's a line that's been underground from Timberland Park all the way along here for over 30 years. It is used for a two-way feed. If there's issues or things that happen, the normal feed is along Highway 52 and it feeds down to Timberland Park and then comes back to that direction. That's one line that we're using for consideration when we do this. The other line is one that we just installed. Because of the lack of ampacity ability, there is a line that follows right down Deer Boulevard and it continues all the way down in here and goes down to Riverside Acres. Because that line wasn't able to handle the load to the south of everything, it's not just because of the campground. The campgrounds and stuff added to that, yes. But all of Riverside Acres and everything down that direction is fed from that line. We built or trenched in a new line along it's not a road, but doe that follows down this path here and ties into this very same corner. So the benefit of this area is we have all 4 of these different directions of line built into this already. So that was a major deciding factor, is picking where to go. It's not, it worked out that this is a corner for Heine's. Obviously that's land that somebody's willing to sell to us because they don't get the crop off of it that they could. That's a total good read there. But we've looked other places and there's not a whole lot of people willing to sell acres down there to put anything on. Go ahead.
So the one north of it's going through a commercial subdivision up there.
Right. It does come down this direction and it is.
Oh, but I mean,
Yep.
kind of like over and up, and that's commercial up
Okay.
there too.
Yep.
Right in that area up there.
Yep.
It just seems like a commercial use, not a residential use. And that's why you're getting complaints.
Yeah, I get your guys' questions. I'm just trying to explain why we picked that corner in particular, is because we have 4 lines, technically 5. The line that feeds all of White Crane comes out of that corner as well, follows the south side of that road and taps off and goes down into Tulip and Lilac and all of those down that direction. So it wasn't just, let's flip a coin and let's see if we can find this cheap. It's because we pushed East River to try and put it in this area because of that line being there, because it'll be less cost for us to tie into that substation. Using your example over here of LaCroix's, if we build into that, We have one single phase line that comes down into here and feeds all of this stuff. That means we would have to build 4 3-phase lines out of that area to give us the same ability of what we have in that corner of Christie down there. And just, that's kind of one of the reasons that it wouldn't work out well for us. Not saying it's impossible. All comes down to the pennies, you know? So if we have the ability to, go ahead, Tim.
So, can I, the question I have is existing substation that's already there, that's over by Gav's Point. It's not the real estate to build out on that, or there's this?
I can zoom into that a little bit too, and maybe Steve can talk about that a little bit more, but the substation, let me get my bearings right here. Welcome. Oh, we're too far. We're too far. Clark Trail. Now we're in the right spot. This is the substation right in this corner right here. Yep. That way, if you ask the question, it's good that you can see it. This is the land. This is the land that East River owns and could be expanded, but you can only expand so far. Now we have to bring large lines from here to feed all the way down into that district again. Well, our distribution line that we have coming out of there, we have 4 of them, 5 of them coming out of there now. Sorry, it is just 4. But if there's those lines to get where we're talking about into this area where the housing is getting more popular and the load is showing up, we'd have to bring probably at least 2 more circuits from that substation that way. The problem East River is having is the line, the overhead line that feeds this substation meanders through this development and is very difficult to get to. And then it ends up on 153, I think is the highway, or the Cottonwood Road there. So if and when we have another lovely windstorm, tips one of these poles over in the back of here, and it just so happens to be it's 3rd of July and everybody's in their campers, not necessarily just in your area, but I get that, also everywhere else. And now we have to try and pick up Gavin's Point substation from another substation. We don't have that capability. We'd end up with rolling blackouts until these guys got down there and found a way to fix that pole. And I don't want to bring up rolling blackouts to meaning that we're going to happen tomorrow. I just mean it the fact that we don't have the capability. So this is a redundancy issue as well. So we're trying to find a way to have some redundancy built into where if we lose this overhead line and or transmission or the transformer inside the substation melted down, East River may have a spare one, may not. The likelihood of that is if we had to order one right now, Steve can tell us this too, but we're at about a year minimum to order a transformer. So it's a redundancy, and that's just kind of the load area, load central that would make more sense to us.
When was that?
Steve, do you know that? 1970 when the sub was built.
But the one that went through that subdivision right down by us? You said you just.
By Doe. Yeah, we trenched that in last summer, right, Matt, when we went through there? Yeah, we trenched that through, I believe it was last summer, yeah. Down what was, I think it's named as Doe. We spliced into the heaviest circuit we have going that direction. We spliced into it right here by Mudslingers, trenched that down along the side of here, and brought it back across on not Alphonse. We came down through here, and it ties into that northern road of White Crane, and that circuit ties right into there. So now what happens is that south circuit is what we would call it, feeds all of this development in this area, and it feeds south into Riverside Acres. That picks all of Riverside Acres up. And we're coming to the point where the east circuit, which I talked about on Highway 52, is getting fairly highly loaded. We're gonna have to start doing some expansion on that too. And that's because of the development in this area out here with things going on in Timberland. There's been some new homes and other stuff obviously on the north end.
All right, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I'd say one more thing. I am a customer and I pay, and I don't really care as long as the thing isn't close to my house. I just don't want it. Yeah, I just do not. I mean.
Okay, is there anybody else from the audience wants to speak on this topic? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. Bill, do you have something?
I'm just
Okay.
getting ready.
All right, board discussion on this, if there's anything more to.
Couple things I'd like to touch base on. So drainage was brought up. So when the 2019 flood came, I actually cleaned out all the culverts from Alphonse Road all the way down and replaced the one on Alphonse also, which is like a 24-inch culvert, something like that. Drainage is a problem on there. I don't know how much this is going to affect that. I think some of it is with the subdivision ordinance. Most of the people on that road think that those culverts that go into Christie and whatever else are the county's culverts, which they're not. They're actually private, mostly undersized. There's actually issues down there right now with somebody putting in plastic culverts, which is against our ordinance. I think just as long as these guys know, I don't know if an approach permit is going to be needed to get in there. I would guess so. Just as long as they follow the subdivision ordinance and put in, I believe it is supposed to be a 24-inch culvert on that road. I think that would address most of the concerns as far as the flooding part, I guess. Trying to think what else he said here. Is there a setback requirement from houses on this at all? Not with us, but like with safety, like 100 feet or?
We follow the National Electric Safety Code and they do not dictate a safe distance from a substation.
Okay, so no, nothing at all. Okay.
And I guess
And then-
just measuring on Beacon, the closest house to the proposed site is 380 feet.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I was just.
For
kinda-
the one that's proposed right now, on the lot one.
Now, let me reiterate, we do not really have a phase 1 or a phase 2. It was just designated lot 1, lot 2. And I did hear concern about the amount of runoff. We do design the grading to impact the property around it to the very least we can. There is a limited amount of concrete in a substation. We typically have foundations for transformers and what we call circuit breakers that are relatively minimal in size. You'll see when the site is graded, yes, we build up a clay base, put gravel over that, and then finishing what you see on the surface is a rock surface. It's there for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is safety for the people that are in the substations. It prevents any kind of basically touch potential if something malfunctions in the substations for the personnel that are in the substation.
Are you talking like quartzite, like the pink quartzite? Is that what they use?
Typically, it's like an inch crushed, yeah.
Okay.
With and we do resistivity tests on the rock to make sure that it meets our criteria. But yeah, typically there wouldn't be a lot of runoff from the substations, and like I said, our consultants design the grade to impact the property around it the very least.
Bill, there's no requirements in our ordinance whatsoever for anything like this, like CUPs as far as screening or anything else like that.
It's permitted use, so
Yep.
It's permitted,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Would East River be opposed to a condition that lot 2 not be used for utilities or utility facility?
Yeah, I don't believe that would be an issue with us at all.
we'd have to ask state's attorney, but I don't know if you
Yeah.
can put a condition on it if it's a permitted use. I'm not sure.
I think it's
Well, we can put a condition on the
on the rezone.
rezone.
So like with my PUD rezone, they did do conditions on my PUD rezone. So I would guess that they would be able to do conditions on this rezone also.
Well, a PUD, you make your own rules, and this is a set amount of rules. So I would want to clarify that with the state's attorney before we did something that, you know, was not
Okay.
allowed. Is she on still? Oh. No, that's okay. If you make a condition, we can double check that.
I would say, yeah, if we could also put a condition of fencing and screening of trees, like I feel for these people, honestly. I mean, I have property down there also. If it is possible,
Well, I guess,
well, if you can put a condition on it, a condition is a condition, correct?
Well, it is, but that's why I'm saying I'm not sure.
Yeah,
You
if she
can't do a
says
rezone
no,
and say, okay, we're gonna rezone this, but you can't do all these things. You're saying we're gonna rezone to moderate density. Here's what the ordinance says in moderate density. It's permitted use. Go ahead. So that's why before you
Gotcha.
start putting conditions on, we need to clarify with the state's attorney whether or not that's allowed.
Gotcha. So Bill, do you think we don't put any conditions on it and then see what happens at the other
I
level?
think you can, but everybody has to understand that we have to run this by the state's attorney and those conditions. But again, let's go back, it's a permitted use. They could go buy 4 more acres and build it on that south lot and nobody has a say. So they're trying to do everything they can. This is the best location for them and for servicing everybody. They're trying to do everything they can to make it work and not use that south lot.
Okay, so without any conditions, Ken or whoever, without any conditions whatsoever, are you guys willing to do trees all the way around? Is that a possibility? Without putting any conditions on it, just to help these guys out, or?
Yeah, that is a possibility. I actually had, like I had mentioned earlier, another preliminary site plan that it did include screening on the south and on the east of that lot too. So
I guess the current drawing shows the existing screening or existing shelter belt that's on the south side, and then your drawing shows the east side and the north side. Is there a reason that Deer Boulevard itself on the west side, basically, of your lot wouldn't be screened?
it it basically, we just decided that we would start with that screening around there. The previous owner did request it, and we certainly could consider additional screening if that's a concern.
It seems like a lot of the concern is about the second lot. There are ways, I'm sure, that the second lot could be resolved. You could probably buy it from the Heine's and deed that lot back to them. There are a lot of things that could be done to ensure these folks that nothing will ever be built on that second lot. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I can say this, in order to get a purchase agreement with them, they were pretty much insisting that we purchase 3 acres. We didn't really want 3 acres, and we're dealing with it the best that we can. Just basically, we think that it's an area that can be used for screening. It can be used as a buffer from the substation.
Would you be willing to sell that south lot to the homeowner?
We would certainly entertain any offers. I can't speak for my manager, but yes, we would possibly entertain some offers. We like I said, we have no plans for the substation for that lot too. We thought it would be a buffer
The problem with that is that everybody doesn't have plans to do something, but yet many things do happen and change. And this is the one chance that these folks have to structure it the way that they can feel comfortable with.
And like I had previously mentioned too, we certainly could consider additional screening on that lot if that was desirable to the owners in the neighborhood. Like I said, I did have an initial concept where we had screening on that south and we had other ideas at the time, but I don't see it as an issue.
Guess I just want to, this is Ken Sarda again. These, in front of this substation is where we will access, or if you look at Gavin's sub, you'll see a green box basically sitting out in front of there. That green box takes care of, this will take care of 5 circuits coming out of it. That takes 1 circuit from this substation to feed all 5 of those different directions. Expansion, you're concerned about lot 2. We have room here that we'll have to come out with, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just on this one side, 5 different opportunities to come out of that substation to go out to one of these boxes, which then goes 4 to 5 directions. I really don't see it in the next 30 years that we would ever need. I hate to even put a number on that. I should take that back. That we would ever need to come down this direction to put more use into that area. Said right now, Gavin's sub that's been there since 1970 has 4 circuits coming out of it. 4 circuits, that's what's coming out of that one box that's sitting in front of that substation. This has the capability of 3, 6, 4 times each time. There's 12, 16, 15 different circuits. And East River,
Good information though.
it's East River's way of having to do this once. When you're in there building that steel, it's a lot easier to do it while there's nothing energized, nothing in the way, and nothing to be built around, right? But the reason I just wanted to reiterate that East River has no need for this down here.
Then go north, then buy more acres on north, then go 5 acres. Then you wouldn't have to rezone.
Go north, you'd have to buy 20 acres.
There you go. There you go.
$85,000 an acre.
Makes the bar go up.
Does anybody know north of where there's 20 acres to buy? I don't think there is.
I don't think there is in all Yankton County right now.
We talked about the need for planning. Infrastructure is a basic part of all economic development. We need electricity. And we need to do whatever we can do to protect the homeowners in the area so that they're not put in a disparaging position. So that's where I'm at. We need to resolve it with some kind of give and take on both sides.
I am hearing some concerns about this additional lot too. Like, we certainly, like I said, would entertain additional screening along that lot too. So that it's not as visible to the houses to the south. I know that there's been concerns voiced about how it's going to impact the property. And, if that's going to help alleviate concerns, we can certainly look at more screening. This is just the first concept. This is our first idea of what screening would look like around that sub or on that property.
Well, if you have continual blackouts, that's going to affect property values too. So we need the electricity for economic development to go on and to serve the people that are there.
Is there a chance that that second lot, being that from the conversation basically that's been said here, is it's not going to be built on part of the substation? And the concern from the people, especially in Christie Lane down there, is the runoff and the water and the flooding down in there. And I know that they gotta build the substation up enough so that there's not a flooding issue amongst all that electricity. It's gotta run away from that system. So is there a way to, and not being from that area, is there a way to control the runoff from that site that you're wanting to put the substation on, to control that water within the second lot, whether it be culverts going out and going on by you guys? Or,
Unfortunately, that's a dead end for all water. It just stops it.
yeah, I understand that, but I just, something, sometimes you need a settling pond.
I was assuming.
And, or something, like the take ponds, that are around all over the country when they build highways and stuff like that, that kind of a lake or something like that, and it wouldn't hold water. But basically it would, like they use out by Menards and some of those
Detention
developments out there on,
Walmart's.
yeah, where it catches the water that comes off that and at least doesn't send it right across the road. And maybe that part of the material that's on lot 2 could be used in your grading of your lot 1 to get it up somewhat the standard to create that, to make some kind of a thing that would, because I see it happening right across from the airport in Yankton here now, where they're building all those houses up there, and I keep seeing that little berm of dirt there that they've got that runs down that field, and the water's going to come right down and go right into everybody's windows on that development down there, because they're building. When you start pouring concrete, you send water a whole nother direction. And that, I think my concern is if we can add some screening to it, to, if you can do that, and I know that we're just dealing with the rezone, but in order to kind of make everything gel together here, to be able to do something with that lot that make it non-buildable basically, but would do something to prevent water runoff from your substation adding to the problem down there.
Yeah, once again, there is a limited amount of concrete on the site. There will be some foundations for transformer and for
I understand.
our breakers, and certainly there could be a potential for some runoff. Our consultants will look at that and they will design the site to not impact the property around it.
I thought I heard you say that there was a clay base.
There will be a clay base, and yes, there's runoff from clay.
Thank you.
But as we progress down the road on this, we cannot put conditions on a rezone. I mean, and I think our conversation here has been talking about a lot of things and a lot of concerns that need to be addressed in order for it to be compatible with everybody around. Just a minute, Greg. I don't want to lose my thought. I'm getting old, so things disappear sometimes. But I agree that I feel, in my opinion anyway, that we could rezone lot 1 separate, because this is the minimum lot size and a moderate density is 1 acre or 40,000 square feet basically. But understanding that the sale of that property hinges on lot 1 and lot 2. That's what the deal is. I know that you plot the lot 2, but I mean, in order to.
It'd be a non-conforming lot, but it's low density, has 5 acres.
Right.
So that's why we're rezoning both of them, because they won't plat for non-conforming lot.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the low density one is where the sticker is basically, because.
They're both.
Yeah.
Rural transitional is 20 acres, low density is 5. They want to do 2 that are slightly over.
But if we could, in my mind anyway, and maybe it's wrong, but typically if we rezoned lot one to moderate density, it would fit into the spot zoning, but I mean, it would be,
But what do you do with lot two then? Because it's not conforming. Then we can't prove it not a conforming lot. They didn't want to buy lot two, they were forced to buy lot two.
that's what I'm saying, yeah,
That's why they might sell it to the homeowners division for $1.
make a waiting.
Look, one of the questions that sticks in the back of my mind is when we talked initially, when you addressed this initially, there were several unknowns. Where things were going to go. When will those unknowns be known?
Are you asking about the line that's going to source the substation?
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
So
Anything that you don't know exactly what your plan is. Those are the unknowns that I'd like to hear. And then my question following that up is, should we be getting those unknowns in front of this board and these folks before we make a decision? When's your construction start?
Well, I believe it's basically a separate issue from the substation. And like I said, we go through a process to site transmission lines. We have to do a preliminary survey. We look at, well, what's the feasibility of the route that we're looking at? Well, what is the impact on the route to the adjacent property owners? We try to select the route that's going to be the least impact. Sometimes that process takes a while. We would hope that we would have some kind of a determination here by the end of the year, but there's no guarantees.
Are the only unknowns to deal with the power lines coming in, but the actual facility layout is pretty much set, that what you want to do?
Well, the site plan that you see, that is the current design, and that's what we're proposing, but I have mentioned that certainly we can add some screening to that plan.
So I think what I heard you say is that a 1 month delay wouldn't create a great problem for you in your planning process.
Well, we would really like to get this approved and continue it through the process. We would hope that we could actually begin some grading yet this fall. So yes, it would impact us if this is not approved.
So one thing I'd like to make sure on 100% is that we can't put conditions on this, because they put conditions on my rezone. So I would think that they can put conditions on this because a rezone is a rezone, whether it's PUD or not.
Well, I would disagree, because a PUD is when you create a whole new set of rules. And if they don't like them, they can change them. This is being rezoned into a set zoning district that's already been set by the county commission, and there's no changing it.
Does it say in our ordinance somewhere that conditions can be put on a PUD?
Yes. But PUD
Where
is
at?
different than this type of review zone.
Where at in the ordinance does it say that?
That's the background of what a PUD is.
You're creating
You
your own.
create the rules. It doesn't say, if we like the rules, you can do it.
What? What does it say exactly? Okay, but what's this? Which section is this out of? I'm guessing this is CUP.
No, it isn't.
Okay, well, look. So basically what he just gave me is in recommending approval of any petition of amendment or change in zone, the planning commission may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards in conformity with this ordinance. Which page did you say that was on, sir? Like I was saying, it's not gonna hurt to ask the state's attorney, in my opinion. I guess that was.
And you can approve it with conditions and we can verify, and the county commission can eliminate those conditions also, if they so choose.
I don't know what you guys are thinking. I guess I just thought I'd put it out there.
I guess the way I read is that we can't put conditions on that, on the rezone, but I guess I'm not clear as to what the extent of those conditions can be. And that's what I'd like clarification from state's attorney on.
She let us know. So
Yeah.
you could approve it and put conditions on, and if those conditions aren't valid, the county commission can remove them anyway. If they don't agree with them.
Is that what you guys are thinking?
I guess that's what I would be in favor of. I guess I would make a motion to approve the rezone on condition that lot 2 not be used for a utility facility, and that additional screening would be provided around the border of the facility. In addition to what was already proposed in the site plan,
Say that last part again.
that there be additional screening included in addition to what the site plan already had. And predominantly on the south side.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but you know, planting a tree this tall, that'll be 20 feet tall in 30 years is a hell of a lot different than spading in some decent sized trees. So I think we need to be specific on if we're gonna put conditions, we need to be specific on types and size of trees.
What do you think,
And what
Don?
can be parked on that lot, not just that it can't be used for future development, but what they can park on there or store on there. And then any other screening requirements that you might have.
So you want me to interpret that?
Do you want to?
So what your motion is that lot 2 not be used for utility facility or any kind of storage or vehicle parking, to remain a vacant lot, basically. And if they want to develop it, they have to come in and get approval.
I like the idea of them selling it myself, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't think we can force them to do that, but if they want to develop it in the future, they would have to come back to the planning commission. Is that what you're saying?
I would agree with that.
I think
that would be the only protection you would have on it, as far as if you put the condition that they cannot build on it, then if they, being it's headed in the direction of being rezoned to moderate density, whether the homeowners want to buy it or somebody else wants to buy it, it has, at that point, then there has to be some kind of notification or whatever, what's going to be done with it, so that,
Well, that's why I mentioned if they want to develop on it, it has to come back to the planning commission. If they sell it, then that condition.
that's up to the next.
And Bill, I want to be sure that people realize that we're not here to negotiate a deal.
Right.
We're trying to talk about things that may result in a favorable outcome for both parties, both sides. So I think there's some further discussion that may be necessary before we move on this.
Okay, so I guess this is getting kind of muddled with this motion, so I'm gonna rescind the motion. I think that more appropriate, I'd make a motion to table this till the next meeting. And we could get that clarification from the state's attorney as to what as to what conditions we're allowed to put on this. And to what extent we can go with that. I guess I would recommend that in that time, that site plan that includes some of these things that we've talked about be brought up the next meeting, and that so you address some of these concerns.
That's. I would support that.
Is that a second?
Sure.
All right. Is there any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, let's do a vote on the motion to table it till next meeting.
Barkle,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
All right, motion carried. All right, the next agenda item, Crown Castle conditional use permit. Thank you, everybody. All right. Applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to add additional antennas to an existing tower per Article 25, Section 2503. Said property is legally described as the northwest quarter of Section 32, Township 94 North, Range 57 west of the 5th PM, Yankton County, South Dakota, and Zivcuff North Township. Is there anybody here for Crown Castle?
She's on Zoom.
I am Christina Wilburn from Crown Castle.
All right, go ahead.
We're only proposing to add an additional antenna per sector, so it will go from 3 antennas per sector to 2 antennas per sector.
Could you repeat that? It was kind of echoey.
I'm sorry, we're going from 3 antennas per 1 antenna per sector to 2 antennas per sector. So we're only adding 3 additional antennas.
Thank you.
But it's going on the same tower, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Into our ordinance, if they're adding antennas, they have to go through the CUP. That's something that we've discussed eliminating. Currently though, just to add, but I think Eric, when Eric, forget his name, Taylor was here, he talked about how they're not putting up new towers, they're trying to add on to existing towers.
Will they be the same size antenna?
Yes.
I think that was discussed several times in the process of the towers and all that stuff, was try to put as much hardware as you could on one tower and not be building new towers all over the place. So,
So these are the same height, same size. They're going basically right next to the existing antennas on the tower.
Exactly.
Motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Hold on.
Sorry,
Alright.
I forgot about public comment.
Is there any,
My fault. I didn't.
any other questions here for Crown Castle? All right, is there anybody from the public wishes to speak on the conditional use permit? Okay, seeing none, close public comment. All right, Matt, if you,
Motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
motion is second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, go ahead, Bill.
Barkle,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Michael,
yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
thank you for your patience. Will you give me a call tomorrow so we can discuss the county commission meeting?
Yes. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you. Since we tabled the East River application, we'll just table the plat to go with that. Is that okay?
Right, do we need a motion on that?
I make a motion to table that East River plot
Second.
until the next meeting.
Right, I have a motion and a second, all in favor,
Aye.
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 opposed? All right, it is moved till next month. All right, next is a hamburger plat of hamburgers addition in the northeast quarter of section 22. T95 north, range 57 west of the 5th PM, Yankton County, South Dakota, and Lesterville Township.
They just surveyed off 22 acres out of a larger chunk for a homestead. So meets all the ordinances.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. You can go ahead and do roll call.
Barkle,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
All right, the Oliver plat of lots 14 and 15, block 3, law overlook subdivision in the northeast quarter of section 18, township 93 north, range 56 west of the 5th PM, Yankton County, South Dakota, Utica South Township.
These two lots, these were part of his original CUP. We put twin homes there, and he's finally moving forward with that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Go ahead and do roll call when you're ready.
Barkle,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
All right, last up is public comment. Any further public comment? All right, public comment is closed.
Did you want
Did you want to come up? Come on up if you want to. For it.
I'm Stephanie Horst, General Manager of Bonham Yankton Electric. And by all means, actually, this whole plan was in a short order of time, and East River was kind of pressed time to get this going. We are having extreme strain on our Gavin substation to a point where we have roughly about 3 megawatts of known load, possibly that needs to go onto the Gavin substation, and there's just not room for it. They are looking at upgrading some transformers there, but that whole area, the Gavin substation serves about that whole lake area, and it is so vulnerable. One thing that I made sure to let East River know is that we have to be good neighbors to our members, and that screening is really important. So whatever you come up with, we're all really willing and are going to do whatever we can to be that good neighbor. So that's all I wanted to say.
We want you to come up with it.
What's that?
We want you to come up with it.
Oh, with the good screening?
Yeah, so I guess some of the things that we're looking for is if you show a concrete plan of the additional screening, that would make them comfortable. A plan to deal with lot 2, what they want, basically assurances, not what I don't think we're ever going to do anything there, because basically after this process, they have no say over it. They have no input over it, what happens on that second lot.
Right.
So if there's nothing binding on you, you can say, yeah, we don't plan on it ever putting anything there, but in 5 years down the road, you could build something there and nobody can say anything about it. So that's what the concerns are about. And if you could do something that would alleviate those concerns and have that to present to us, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that one thing about the lot 2, though, what is a little concerning, I just kind of brought up to Ken, is that utility facilities, what does that mean? You know, because we do have utilities running along that line to serve our members, and, you know, so that language has to we have to be somewhat careful, I guess, just so that we have that ability to, all of ours is underground, so it's not going to be intrusive on any visual or anything like that. But as far as lot two, I mean, I get what you're all saying and what the public is saying too. You know, the only concern is with anything is just overreach, you know, telling people what they can and cannot actually do on a lot. We have no intentions, of course, to be bad neighbors and put something on that. But if it was sold, who knows what would go on there, but we wouldn't be putting any like utility structure, I believe. And if you look at the Gavin substation, that has been there since 1970 and that footprint hasn't changed. So I don't see that would, but it's hard to, you know, I totally understand, you know, the unknowns are scary.
I just thought of something, that they haven't technically closed on it. They could put a deed restriction on lot 2 that says no utility facilities. And then it's not a condition but it's attached to the deed, so utility facility could not. But I think they would be maybe open to that.
Yeah.
And
Although
something like that
structure
is,
would be a better word.
well, I guess you would have the freedom to write that up and present that, and I think that would go a long
That would
way.
protect everybody. That deed restriction, you know, they can go ahead and build a house if somebody wants to buy it. But it says you can't build a utility facility, and that eliminates that threat.
Right, and bringing something like that back to us, the next meeting would definitely help
Yeah.
that situation.
And I recognize that this puts you in kind of a difficult situation because you have no focal point on the other side to talk or negotiate with. But you got to figure that out. Bill can maybe help too. Pardon?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not meaning Heine's at all. I'm just meaning there's a group of people here that are gonna come back in another month, and if they aren't happy, they're gonna bitch. Well, that's not their fault if they've been trying to negotiate something.
What's that?
Go through the homeowners association.
Well, and I'm willing to do that, but I think what it comes down to is you'll never make them happy because they don't want it there. So I think all we can do is do our due diligence that we think protects, and like Don said, they need it. They had a blackout last summer, July 4th. So, you know, the best interest of the community is they need it. What can we do to alleviate some of the concerns?
Several of them did indicate a little bit of variance in, you know, if they could get some assurances on a couple of things. That water deal, I don't have any hell, when they built their houses, that water deal was a problem.
And if you look at it, you know, look, if it was a floodplain map, if they were in the floodplain, they wouldn't be regulated because a fence lets the water through and the concrete isn't going to really affect it that much. So, you know, there's certain things we can address, like the deed restriction and the screening. There's certain things that they just are what they are. And we have to accept that and move on. So, but we'll talk and try to get something figured out. And then.
Well, I think though too, Bill, you know, coming into this discussion, basically, we started out looking at it from it's a rezone, and that was our task to do, was rezone it. And then, you know, all these things that came in, and of course, we had Greg Henderson in here who wrote the ordinance from District 3 that kind of knows it in and out, you know, and wrote several of them. But either way, if we can come to some kind of a happy medium to where, okay, the substation's got to get built, because the most logical place to put it is where all your lines come together, you know, and about, you know,
and if you had to move
building, everything that's going on down there is gonna just keep loading the system. And if you don't get it fixed, they're really gonna complain when they don't have electricity for 2 or 3 days.
And if you have to move it 500 feet and the costs triple, what's that gonna do to the fees, the rates? And maybe that's, if you have that, so any numbers next time that you can say, hey, if we have to move this here, your rates are gonna double or triple, or an idea. I mean, you can't give exact.
We don't want any more rate increases down there. No more rate increases.
The watershed off of the first top.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to second.
All right. So closing public comment, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.